Hey guys, these are the reading questions for chapter 16 of Boy in the Striped Pajamas. Question 1, how do we know that a lot of time has passed since the beginning of the novel? On page 176, it says that it's been almost a year, but we also see some signs of this. When the family goes back to Berlin for the grandmother's funeral, all of a sudden Bruno can see over the top of things that he wasn't able to see before. Remember, he used to stand on his tiptoes and look out over the city. Now he doesn't have to stand on his toes to be able to see that far. Some other things too. In the last chapter, he's a little bit more sarcastic. We've associated sarcasm with teenagers and growing older. The novel makes that connection. And Bruno kind of talks back to Kotler. He's a little bit sarcastic towards him. So we see him growing up a little bit. Question 2, what happened to Lieutenant Kotler? Remember in the last questions, we made the inference that Bruno's mother and Kotler were having an affair. And then on page 178, Kotler has now been transferred away from Auschwitz. Presumably, the father found out about this and has transferred Kotler away, or maybe something worse happened to him. It's a little bit hard to tell. I think here the author kind of creates this sense of paranoia that would have been in an environment like this, right? People disappear. Remember, Shmuel's grandfather disappeared. Nobody really knows what happens. These kinds of things can happen in situations like Auschwitz. Question 3, why does Bruno think that his friendship with Shmuel is strange? On the bottom of 178, because every other boy I've ever been friends with has been someone that I've been able to play with. They're not able to play. They're all only able to sit on either side of the fence and talk to each other. So this sense of their friendship as a bit unusual, a bit different than typical friendships. Number 4, how has Gretel changed since the start of the story? She's also getting older. On page 180, it says that she decides that she doesn't like dolls anymore. Excuse me. She gives up on the dolls. It's like for little kids. She doesn't tease Bruno as much. She's sort of playing with her hair, maybe a little bit more concerned about her appearance. Also getting older as the story goes on. Question 5, what question does Bruno ask Gretel? On page 181, he says, I want to know about the fence. I want to know why it's there. He has a sense that this is not something that he can ask his parents. It's going to be unpleasant or they're going to get angry. So he doesn't ask them. He asks Gretel instead. Number 6, what explanation does Gretel give? This is a really fascinating bit of dialogue between the two of them. I encourage you to read it closely, page 182 and 83. As Bruno is getting older and he's more able to ask things like this, Gretel has some kind of understanding, whether someone has told her or she has figured out something about the situation there. So she says to him very directly that they are Jewish, and Bruno he's never even heard this word before. He doesn't have any idea what a Jewish person is. Gretel goes on to explain that it's to keep them over there and to keep them together with their own kind. So Bruno was then able to understand, okay, those people over there are Jewish. So if they're Jewish, what does that make us? And this is one of the things that I think is really interesting. Gretel doesn't really seem to have an answer. And we see this a lot, right, in these types of situations that like the dominant group, the group that's in charge, doesn't really have a term for describing themselves, right? In their minds, they're just normal people. They need sort of like those others to be able to understand themselves as something different from that. That's very much the way that she understands it. She says, well, they're Jews, and that means that we're not Jews. And then she goes on to kind of explain like the tension between these two. So Bruno asks, don't the Jews like the opposite then? She says, no, it's us who don't like them, stupid. We don't like them. And then Bruno says, why don't we like them? She says, because they're Jews. She doesn't really have a reason for not liking them other than just sort of like that's the way it is. Question 7, why does Gretel scream and how do their parents deal with this situation? So we're kind of coming to this. Bruno says, well, they don't like each other. Can't someone just get them together and maybe we can work out our differences? And then all of a sudden Gretel screams. And she screams because she discovers that she has lice in her hair. Gross. And Bruno has lice too. So that means that she has to use this shampoo to get rid of the lice. And Bruno's father decides that the best thing to do is to shave Bruno's head. So he has to so he shaves his head. The mother makes the point here that it's because they're in like a dirty kind of place, right? This is sort of the idea here is that this is not a nice clean place for children to be. And I also really like this idea of Bruno having his head shaved, just like Shmuel does. We've seen that they're like twins in a certain sense, despite the fact that they are opposites in the way that we were just talking about, Jewish and not Jewish. They're born on the same day, they're the exact same age, and now with their heads shaved, they even kind of look alike.